Okay, so now we're going into an advanced feature in Zoom, which we covered kind of briefly in our original Zoom webinar if you attended that. But if not, I'll show you how. Zoom has a whiteboard feature similar to EduCreations, but you might use this if you are giving direct instruction with your students actually in a Zoom room. You can record it also, just like EduCreations, to either share it with students who weren't able to attend, or if you just want to use Zoom, I mean, you can go in a Zoom room by yourself and record the lesson as well. So that would be an option if it's something that you're familiar with using and you're more comfortable. The one thing you're going to need to decide, it's best to decide in advance, there is a feature if you're going to use the whiteboard where students can annotate to your whiteboard as part of instruction to kind of involve them. So before I share my whiteboard, I'm going to show you how to find those settings, because you'll want to make sure that's turned on. And there are actually two places. So first, let me share my screen. Are you seeing my screen? Yes? Oh, okay. Just kidding. All right, so this is the web version of the settings. And if you go to settings here, okay, you'll scroll down until you see annotations. And it'll be after screen sharing. And you'll see here it says annotation and allow participants to use the tools. You're going to want to make sure that that's on if you plan to have students doing that. And you have a way to turn that on and off within the meeting as well, but sometimes it will block you. And the other thing I've been discovering, now I have to find this again, there we go, is that sometimes you can have the settings turned on the web-based settings, but if it's not turned on in the app, it won't do it. And I was running into this with some other settings as well. So in the app, can you see my Zoom window here? Okay, good. I found out that the reason it wasn't showing you my Zoom tools is because I had it turned on in settings on the web-based version of the app. But when I went to settings here, it was not clicked in here. So here it will, oh no, that would be in share screen. For example, you can see my Zoom tools because I have show Zoom windows. This will matter also because when you are sharing your annotation tools, if you want students to be able to see what you're clicking on with the annotation tools, which I wanted you to see when I share my whiteboard, I had to make sure that was checked. So I would just make sure it's checked in both places, especially if you run into some trouble. Right, I'm going to go back to a new share. I'm going to share my whiteboard. So I'm hoping you can see, I'm going to move this. When you share screens, you have an option of what you share to. So I was sharing my desktop so you could see my browser window, but you can also share a whiteboard. So I'm going to click that, click share. And I'm going to close this. One thing I found when I was testing it is if your bars, the size of the, at least on my computer when I was testing it where I had two of me in tandem in the same room, which was bizarre, when it shared out my screen to others, it was larger than the way it looks on my screen as host. So what happened was my toolbars were going out of the window if I made it look nicer on my host window. So you kind of have, however it shows up, you want to keep it within that constraints. So this is what it looks like on the host side. And you're going to see, this is kind of like your share window control bar where you can pause what they're seeing. And then these are your annotation tools. I'm going to focus right now just on you as the host doing it and not talk about what that looks like for the students, but then I'll show you how the students can contribute as well. So once you get your whiteboard, it works just like Misty was showing you on EduCreations. You have a text tool where you can type. You have a bunch of different draw tools. You can do free draw, depending on thickness, arrows. They have shaded shapes, outline shapes, different stamps. They have cursor tools. So this would be like a spotlight versus an arrow, eraser, your formatting tools, undo, redo. You should be familiar with most of those. Clear gives you a choice of how you clear it. So you can either just clear the whole whiteboard. You can clear the drawings that you made. And if you have people contributing to the screen, you may just want to clear what they did. So it's kind of nice that it gives you the option. And then at any point, you can also take a screenshot of the whiteboard and save it, and it will save it right to your device. So if I click save right now, it would take a nice little screenshot of my Lakshothala on the screen, and I would have it for forever, and it just saves it to your device. Speaking of, I forgot to say, if you are recording this, which you would want to do if you're going to share it out with students who didn't attend, or if you're doing this on your own and you're recording a lesson that you want to have pushed out to everybody, you can either record before you share your screen, which then would be in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. You can also go from here to more, and you'll see that there's a record option. So make sure you do that before you start teaching, unlike what I just did. The other thing that's good to know is that in the lower right-hand corner, can you see this on my screen? Okay, there's a little plus sign. If you have multiple problems you're working on, you can click the plus sign and it will create a new page. So now I have a new page that I can work on. I can scroll back to the old page and then, you know, do whatever you want to do that way. And I don't know the limit on page numbers. Julie, Misty, do you know how many pages you can have? I'm not aware of that. One other thing, if you are working on the whiteboard, there is a view, and I don't think it's on mine, I think it's on yours. If you have students annotating, there's something called a side-by-side view, which is really helpful because sometimes the little video thumbnails can get in the way of the whiteboard. So if you click on, I think it's called more options on your side, to the right of.
So it's up at the top of the screen where it says you are viewing Tiffany's screen. You'll see view options and then the drop down. And then it should be this, you'll see down at the bottom, like mine says side-by-side mode. And if you check that, that'll move your tiles over.
Just kind of as a logistical for students and for us. Let me see if I forgot anything before I move into students. Any question on the teacher side of the whiteboard?